Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Slobio's World. Excellent video for you to check out today. I think you'll find this is a great example of another perspective on some of the challenges our youth face today. What I initially find interesting is that it didn't really matter if you're from the right or the left. They both seem to recognize the current issues and flaws in the system. Where things get interesting is the cause and the solutions. You got to check this one out.
Okay. I start us with a question. Do we love our children? Sounds like an illegitimate question, right? Well, I'm going to try and convince you otherwise. Essentially, as we go down generations, we're seeing that for the last 2 generations, people are making less money on an inflation-adjusted basis. In addition, the cost of buying a home, the cost of pursuing education continues to skyrocket. So the purchasing power, the prosperity, is inversely correlated to age. Simply put, as we get younger, we're taking away opportunity and prosperity from our youngest.
This is a great point. Very important point. And I'm very interested to find out who the we is. Because I almost feel like the implication is it's like we, the general masses, the people grinding it out at work every day, paying taxes, paying fees, paying insurances, nonstop flow of payments, not enough to get by. If that's the we he's referring to, I don't think it's we. I think it's a different entity. And let's see if we could target who the we is other than the general masses.
Contract that is now no longer in place, and for the first time in the U.S.'s history, a 30-year-old is no longer doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. This is a breakdown in the fundamental agreement we have with any society, and it creates rage and shame. As a result, people over the age of 55 feel pretty good about America, but less than 1 in 5 people under the age of 34 feel very good about America. This creates an incendiary, righteous.
He brings up a solid point right there. The youth are frustrated. But I do believe it's deeper than that even. I don't think the youth even sees the pathway to the American dream any longer. That's the problem. And that's where the far left lures them with their free items, free this, free that, when we all know how that works out.
Movements, cuts to our society end up becoming opportunistic infections because, generally speaking, young people have a warranted envy, they're pissed off, and they're angry that they don't enjoy the same spoils and prosperity that were provided to our generation. A decent proxy for how much we value youth labor is minimum wage, and we've kept it purposely pretty low. If it had just kept pace with productivity, it'd be about $23 a share, but we've decided to purposely keep it low. Out of reach, median home price has skyrocketed relative to median household income. As a result, pre-pandemic, the average mortgage payment was $1,100. It's now $2,300 because of an acceleration in interest rates and the fact that the average home has gone from $290,000 to $420,000. By the way, the most expensive homes in the world, based on this metric, are number 3, Vancouver. Why? Because 60% of the cost of building a home goes to permits. Because guess what? The incumbents that own assets have weaponized government to make it very difficult for new entrants to ever get their own assets.
I always find it interesting when the media does point out that the consumer's main concern is the price of an egg. And it's like, no, the doubling of the mortgages, the insurance, the property taxes, interest rates, actually that is looming much larger in my life than the price of an egg.
Assets there.
If the implication here is that the banks, insurance companies, colleges are the we
elevating
behind
their own networks.
Why
this
these
is the
prices are
I'm
doubling,
speaking about.
He's probably on the right track.
This has resulted in an enormous transfer of wealth, where people over the age of 70 used to control 19% of household income versus people under the age of 40 used to control 12%. Their wealth has been cut in half. This isn't by accident, it's purposeful. This is me at UCLA in 1987. I know your first thought is I haven't changed a bit. This is also Mia Silverio, who is the analyst who put together these slides. By the way, Mia is 26. I did the math. Just by virtue of her being in this audience, it brings the average age of the entire conference down 11 days. When I applied to UCLA, the admissions rate was 76%. Today, it's 9%. I received a 2.23 GPA from UCLA. I learned nothing but how to make bongs out of household items in every line from Planet of the Apes. And the greatest public school in the world, Berkeley, decided to let me in with a 2.27 GPA. And that's what higher ed is about. Higher ed is about taking unremarkable kids and giving them a shot at being remarkable. And every year, it's gotten more expensive. Higher ed and homes, and the ability, not only is higher ed incredibly expensive, it's not accessible, because me and my colleagues are drunk on luxury, and I'll come back to that. We've embraced the ultimate strategy. Me and my colleagues in higher ed wake up every morning and ask ourselves the same question when we look in the mirror. How can I increase my compensation while reducing my accountability? And we have found the ultimate strategy. It's called an LVMH strategy, where we artificially constrain supply to create aspiration and scarcity such that we can raise tuition faster than inflation. And old people and wealthy people have done the same thing with housing. All of a sudden, once you own a home, you become very concerned with traffic, and you make sure that there's no new housing permits. And here,
I do apologize if I'm confused. I don't think it's unrealistic for people that have lived in an area, paid the property taxes, lived a good, solid life, how they should feel bad for wanting to keep it quiet around their neighborhood. That, to me, doesn't seem unrealistic at all.
is a memo to my colleagues in higher ed. We're public servants, not fucking Chanel bags. Harvard is the best example of this. They've increased their endowment in the last 40 years and have decided to expand their enrollment, their freshman class, by 4%. Any university that doesn't grow their freshman class faster than population, that has over $1 billion in endowment, should lose their tax-free status because they're no longer in higher education. They're a hedge fund offering classes. My first recommendation: Biden should take some of that $750 billion earmark to bail out the 1/3 of people that got to go to college on the backs of the 2/3 that didn't, and give $1 billion to our 500 greatest public institutions, size adjusted, in exchange for three things. One, they use technology and scale to reduce tuition by 2% a year, expand enrollments by 6% a year, and increase the number of vocational certifications and non-traditional four-year degrees.
Yeah, I'm going to do a hard pass on all of that. I know he rolled through it pretty quick, but more federal funding and 2% year reduction. Look, the college system needs an entire cleansing. A 2% reduction? They're already 50% over blowing price as it is. And you're talking about a 2% reduction. I think they need to do a total makeover of the college system and make it a fair system. Some kids shouldn't come out of college owing $100,000 and other kids get it for free. And sometimes you don't even have to be an American citizen when you get free college. How is that fair to the kid that comes from an American citizen family and now owes $100,000? Those are the injustices that people see. We're not too concerned about the 2% reduction. That sounds like you're working on behalf of the colleges at this point. Let's face it, this isn't even close to a serious solution.
By 20%. Where does that get us? In just 10 years, that doubles the freshman seats and cuts the cost in half. This isn't radical. This is called college in the 80s and 90s. Another transfer of wealth. Look at what's happened to wages. Oh, they've gone up, not as much as corporate profits. There's a healthy tension between capital and labor. For the last 40 years, capital has been kicking the shit out of labor. Well, you think, whoa, what about wages, right? They've gone up. Well, if you compare them to the S&P, they barely register. It's been an amazing time to own assets, but your attempt to get...
Again, he is correct. A very real problem he's pointing out. And I think either side can agree. It'll be interesting to see what he thinks the solution is.
The certification or the income such that you can acquire assets has gotten harder and harder. In my class of 300 kids, it's never been easier to be a billionaire. It's never been harder to be a millionaire. By the way, our job in higher ed isn't to identify a top 1% of people who are freakishly remarkable or have rich parents and turn them into a superclass of billionaires. It's to give the bottom 90 a chance to be in the top 10. You know who doesn't need me or higher education? The top 10%. The whole point of higher ed is to give the unremarkables, i.e. yours truly, who was raised by a single immigrant mother, a shot at being remarkable. The transfer has been purposeful. While the cohorts, corporations, and the ultra-wealthy continue to garner more and more of our wealth, we have decided, I know, if they win the gold, let's give them the silver and the bronze, and let's lower their taxes. This transfer is purposeful. It's not by accident. And it works. Senior poverty is way down, and we should celebrate that. Meanwhile, child poverty is flat to up. The third rail, I'm going to talk about Social Security. It would cost $11 billion to expand the child tax credit, but that got stripped out of the infrastructure bill. But the additional $135 billion a year to Social Security, that flies right through Congress. And every year we transfer $1.4 trillion from a cohort that is increasingly doing less well to the cohort that is the wealthiest cohort in the history of this planet. I'm not against Social Security, but the criteria should be if you need it, not whether you have a catheter. 80% of you have absolutely no reason to ever take Social Security. It is bankrupting our nation, and we have fallen under this mythology that somehow it's this great social program. No.
Oh, whoa. You lost me there, bro. I believe everything you just said is backwards. It's not a myth. It is the actual intent of the program. People have been paying into that system their entire lives for that purpose. It was forced upon the workers in the United States, and decades of mismanagement is really the problem. So you confidently wag your finger preaching 80% won't need it. WTF are you talking about? Most people can't save nearly enough money that they need to retire.
It's the great transfer of wealth from young to old. How is this happening? Because our representatives are in fact representative. Old people vote. Washington has become a cross between the land of the dead and the Golden Girls. Quite frankly, this is fucking ridiculous. And if I sound ageist, I am. And you know who else is ageist? Biology. When Speaker Pelosi had her first child, get this, 2/3 of households didn't have color televisions, and Castro had just declared martial law. But she's supposed to understand the challenges of a 17-year-old girl who's 5'9", 95 pounds, getting tips on dieting and extreme dieting from Facebook. She's supposed to understand.
Actually, funny comparison, Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, I think that politicians don't necessarily need to understand the eating habits of a 17-year-old. I think just not being corrupt and doing a good job would be adequate enough. I think parents can handle the teenage girl.
The challenges that a 27-year-old single mother face. By the way, young and dreamy. Young and dreamy.
Okay. That didn't age well.
The great intergenerational theft took place under the auspices of a virus. I know. Let's use the greatest health crisis in the century to really speedball the transfer. This is the NASDAQ from 2008 to 2012. We let the markets crash. And by the way, you need churn, you need disruption, because it seeds and recalibrates advantage and wealth from the incumbents to the entrants. It's a natural part of the cycle. But wait, lately, no, 1 million people dying would be bad, but what would be tragic is if we let the NASDAQ go down and guys like me lost wealth. So we pumped the economy, which again...
COVID changed the world, and it wasn't for the good. It was both the transfer of wealth and power. Don't forget, the corporations teamed up with governments to enforce numerous tyrannical measures, resulting in the largest government overreach and transfer of wealth. Government, corporations, look at the pain you feel today. It started during COVID. Don't you ever wonder why the huge inflation that exists today didn't go away? The corporations don't give up profits. They are more emboldened today than they ever have been before.
Increase the massive transfer of wealth. The best 2 years of my life COVID, more time with my kids, more time with Netflix, and my value of my stocks absolutely exploded. And who has to pay for my prosperity? Not me. Future generations who will have to deal with an unprecedented level of debt.
You know, he sounds kind of remorseful about all the funding and money he's acquired from future generations. I wonder if he's just going to give it back.
Why am I here and why do I get the prosperity I enjoy? Because in 2008, we bailed out the banks, but we didn't bail out the economy. We let the markets fall. So as I was coming into my prime income earning years, I got to buy, no joke, these stocks at these prices. This is where those stocks are now. Where does a young person find disruption? When you bail out the baby boomer owner of a restaurant, all you're doing is robbing opportunity from the 26-year-old graduate of a culinary academy that wants her shot. We need to...
I don't know. I get things confused. If he's saying that when you're bailing out a restaurant owner, who's your? Well, your would be what? The taxpayers? Well, we don't really decide that, first off. We're just trying to get by in this high inflationary world too. So when you refer to when you're bailing out, that's with taxpayer dollars, I'm assuming, you're cutting off the chances of the 26-year-old culinary student's opportunity. Well, I don't think either of those are true. I think, well, both of them have the need for funding and a job, but the money's not there. So where is it? Oh, that's right. It's the money that you regret that you possess.
I just like this slide. It has no context or relevance. We're economically attacking the young, but I know, let's attack their emotional and mental well-being. Let's take advantage of the fact of the flaws in our species with medieval institutions, Paleolithic instincts, and godlike technology. I'm just going to say, I think Mark Zuckerberg has done more damage to young people in our nation while making more money than any person in history. Oh, but wait, what could be worse? It's as if we let an adversary implant a neural jack into our youth to raise a generation of civic, military, and business leaders that hate America.
I agree. Social media has not been good for the youth. The only thing worse I could think of is if the education system was also producing graduates and students that hate America.
How can we be this stupid? All right, this all adds up to a bunch of graphs all headed up into the right. And what are they? What's the first one? Oh, that's self-harm rates, which have exploded, especially among girls, since my colleague Jonathan Haidt pointed out it's really gone crazy since social went on mobile. What's the next one? Teens with depression. The next one, men and women not having sex. Biggest fear of my parents was that I was going to get in too much trouble. My biggest fear, honestly, is that my kids aren't going to get into enough trouble. By the way, my advice to every young person watching this program is go out, drink more, and make a series of bad decisions that might pay off.
I don't think that's the best advice. What I would simply say is go out and have some fun, keep your eyes open for some opportunities, and work hard. Stay focused and be a good person.
Next graph, cumulative gun deaths. You're more likely to be shot in the United States if you're a toddler or an infant than a cop. Next graph.
Oh, that
obesity,
sounds a little off.
Way up. By the way, the industrial food complex wants to
number.
addict you to shitty, fatty food so they can hand you over to the industrial diabetes complex. We should not romanticize obesity. You're not finding your fucking truth. You're finding diabetes.
Whoa, bro, I'm sitting right here. My God, do I want a rotisserie chicken and a dozen donuts right now.
Overdose deaths, way up. Deaths of despair. When I was in high school, it was drunk driving. Now it's kids killing themselves. Young people don't want to have kids anymore. 2/3 of people aged 30 to 34, able-bodied, used to decide to have at least one child. It's been cut in half. It's now less than a third, 27%. As a result, people over the age of 60 in the US, pretty happy. People under the age of 30, not so much, some of the lowest in the free world. What can we do? Nothing wrong with America that can't be fixed with what's right with it. We got the hard stuff figured out. There are programs to address all.
I think I'll agree to disagree at this point in the show. Good show. He feels and believes what he says, but just because you believe what you say doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate, true, and would work. In fact, many of his conclusions are way off, in my opinion.
All of these issues, they cost a lot of money. That's the hard part. And we have figured this out. In just 5 minutes post an earnings call, we can add $250 billion to the economy. We've got the hard part figured out, the resources. We have the money, but we decide not to do it. This is per capita spending on childcare in the United States relative to other nations. This is housing permits. Things are doable. We increase minimum wage to $25 an hour. It goes into the economy. The wonderful things about low and middle income households is they spend all their money.
Wow. The wonderful thing is the low and the middle income people spend all their money. This is amazing. He doesn't connect the dots. If we're after the low income people, the 90% pay housing, transportation, banks, credit card companies, rogue insurance rates, invented taxes and fees, there's no money left. The implication low and middle income people spend their money like drunken sailors on a payday is insulting and out of touch. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful.
Have to have a restore or a progressive tax structure with alternative minimum tax on corporations and wealthy individuals. We need to refund the IRS. We need to reform Social Security. It should be based on whether you need the money, not on how old you are. We need a negative income tax. My friend Andrew Yang screwed up a great idea, but he branded it incorrectly. Instead of calling it UBI, he should have got Republicans on board by calling it a negative income tax. We need to eliminate the capital gains tax deduction. When did we decide that the money that capital earns is more noble than the money that sweat earns? Shouldn't it be flipped?
Okay.
We need to remove 230 protection for all algorithmically elevated content. We need identity verification. The reason we can have identity verification is because we have a First Amendment. Break up big tech. We have monopolies that are incurring greater and greater costs on every small business and parents because, again, see above, our representatives don't understand these technologies. We need to age gate social media. There's absolutely no reason anyone under the age of 16 should ever be on social media. We need universal pre-K. We need to reinstate the expanded child tax credit. We need term limits, see above Andrew Yang. We need income-based affirmative action. Any visible signs of affirmative action make no sense at all. You would rather be born gay or non-white in the United States today than poor, and that's a sign of our progress and our need to recalibrate who we give advantage to. Affirmative action, of which I'm a beneficiary of, I got Pell Grants, I got unfair advantage. Affirmative action is a wonderful thing, and it should be based on color. It should be based on green, how much money you have or don't have. Expand college enrollment and vocational programs, mental health, ban phones in schools, invest in third places, big brothers and sisters programs. We need national service. We need to tell people in the United States and Canada that they live in the greatest countries in the world, and we need to remind them of that every day by exposing them to other great Americans where they feel connected tissue. We can do all of this. We can do all of it. We have the resources. The question is, do we have the will? This is my last slide. It is an emotionally manipulative slide to try and get you to like me more. But it does have a message. This is the whole shooting match. Anybody here without kids, ask someone with kids. You have your world of work, you have your world of friends, you have your world of kids. Something happens here, your whole world shrinks to this. So I present, as I wrap here, which is a few questions. One, if you acknowledge that our kids are the most important thing in our lives, that everything else we do here is meaningful, but our kids' well-being and prosperity is profound. If you acknowledge that they're doing more poorly than previous generations, if you believe there's a chance that the illusion of complexity has done nothing to provide cloud cover for the unbelievable transfer of goodwill, of well-being, and of prosperity from young to old. And if you believe we can actually fix these problems and we have the resources, then I present to you, I posit, I augur the question that I hope has more veracity than it did 17 minutes and 24 seconds ago. And that's the following question. Do we love our children?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the top 10% that are stealing from our youth's future really care. And also, I don't think we care enough for our seniors in this country. It's hard for me to fathom that somebody would suggest that a person that was forced to work in a system their entire life and contribute to a program such as Social Security their entire life is now robbing from the youth by taking out some of the money that they put in for an entire lifetime. That just makes no sense to me. But I guess that's why we watch these videos and try to break them down and learn from them. Thanks for joining Slobio's World. We'll see you next time.